This man is accused of killing his estranged wife and her daughter inside their home in Ocala. As Fox 35's Marie Edinger reports, he took his own life when police tracked him down up in Georgia.
She was 16 years old. He was 21. And somehow, Nancy's mama signed off on that marriage, hoping it would keep her teenage daughter from getting pregnant out of wedlock. Make it make sense. 10 years later, Nancy would be dead. Her 4-year-old daughter Eden, dead right next to her, and the man she married as a child would be the one holding the gun. When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury, the victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Nancy Irene Barker met Ralph Bacon in 9th grade. She was 14, maybe 15. Ralph was already out of school, already grown, moving through the world as an adult man. By the time Nancy turned 16, they were talking marriage. Nancy's mother, Ola, wasn't happy about it. Her teenage daughter wanting to marry a 21-year-old man. That didn't sit right. But Ola signed those papers anyway. She was worried that if she said no, Nancy would end up pregnant and unmarried. So she gave her blessing, hoping a ring would somehow protect her daughter. It didn't. Nancy's best friend Nicole had known her since 9th grade, right when Ralph came into the picture. When Nicole talks about Ralph, she chooses her words carefully.
I wouldn't say he was like the most stable person,
she told reporters. Most stable person. That's how you describe someone when you're being polite about the fact that they were trouble from the start. But even Nicole said,
never in a million years would I have expected him to do this to her and her baby.
The marriage lasted longer than it should have. But by 2016, when Nancy was around 25, she'd had enough. They divorced. Nancy moved on, met someone else, got pregnant. In 2020, she had a baby girl, Eden Eva Barker-Wickramarachchi. A fresh start. But Eden's father wasn't interested in sticking around. Nicole put it plainly.
Yeah, he dipped out.
Left Nancy to raise Eden alone. That's when Ralph started coming back around. Nancy and Ralph had what people called an on-again, off-again relationship. Even after the divorce. Even after she had a whole baby with someone else. Police described it as challenging. But here's what made everything worse. Ralph hated that Eden wasn't his. Nancy's mother Ola said it straight up. That little 4-year-old girl not being Ralph's biological child, that upset him. It ate at him. Every time he looked at Eden, he was reminded that Nancy had moved on. And Ralph Bacon wasn't stable to begin with. Back in Georgia, Ralph had a criminal record. He'd threatened somebody with a gun. The kind of threats that get you arrested, prosecuted, put on probation. He was on that probation for years. It wasn't until July, just 5 months before Nancy and Eden were killed, that he finally got off probation. So you've got a man with a history of gun violence, a man who just got off probation for threatening someone with a weapon, a man who openly resented a 4-year-old child. And somehow, around Christmas, Ralph Bacon moved back into Nancy's apartment. The Marion Springs condominiums in Ocala, Florida. That's where Nancy had been living with Eden, trying to build a life for the two of them. People who knew Nancy said she was kind, generous, creative, artistic. She had this goofy side that could make anybody laugh. Her friends called her a light. But Ola wasn't comfortable with Ralph being back. She knew his history. She knew about the probation, the gun charge, the instability, and she knew how much he hated Eden. So on Monday, Ola called the police, not the Ocala police, the Georgia police, where Ralph had his criminal record. She reported Ralph Bacon, told them she was worried, told them he was dangerous, told them something bad was going to happen. That was Monday. By Monday night, Nancy and Eden were dead. Monday night, 9:16 p.m. The Marion Springs condominiums were quiet. Just another Monday night in Ocala. And then the gunshots started. Multiple shots fired, echoing through the complex. Some neighbors thought it was firecrackers at first, but then they heard the screaming. A woman's voice, desperate, panicked. One neighbor would later tell police exactly what they heard.
And I hear numerous gunshots. And I hear a woman screaming. She has a child.
She has a child. Those were some of the last words Nancy Bacon ever said. A mother, in her final moments, screaming about her 4-year-old daughter, screaming for someone, anyone, to remember that there was a baby in that apartment. And then the screaming stopped. People started calling 911, reporting gunshots, reporting screams. But even as those calls were coming in, neighbors were looking out their windows. That's when they saw Ralph.
I saw the boyfriend speeding out of here in his SUV.
One neighbor said, a dark-colored SUV. North Carolina license plates. Ralph Bacon behind the wheel, tearing out of that parking lot. He'd just killed 2 people, and he wasn't sticking around to face it. One neighbor didn't wait for police. He went straight to Nancy's unit. The door was unlocked. Ralph had left it unlocked in his rush to get out. The door's unlocked, he'd later say. Just went in there and saw them on the ground. Nancy Bacon, 34 years old, shot multiple times. Dead. Eden Eva Barker-Wickramarachchi, 4 years old, shot. Dead. Both of them on the floor. A mother and her daughter, their lives ended in the same burst of violence, probably within seconds of each other. Ralph Bacon made sure of that. By the time Ocala police arrived, there was nothing left to do but confirm what that neighbor had already seen. 2 victims, both deceased, and the shooter was gone. Ocala police had a name, Ralph Bacon. They had a description of the vehicle, dark SUV, North Carolina plates. They had witnesses who saw him leave. This wasn't a mystery. This was a man who just committed murder and was now on the run. They issued a BOLO. Be on the lookout, region-wide. Every law enforcement agency in northern Florida got the alert. Ralph Bacon, 38 years old, armed and dangerous, possibly heading north. And then the license plate readers started pinging. Modern policing has these automated systems, cameras mounted on highways, at intersections, scanning every license plate that passes by. Ralph Bacon's North Carolina plates were flagged the second that BOLO went out. Every time Ralph's SUV passed one of those readers, law enforcement knew exactly where he was, and the direction became clear. He was making a straight shot north, toward the state line, toward Georgia. Let me tell you something. Ralph Bacon drove over 100 miles after he killed Nancy and Eden. That's not a panicked flight. That's someone with a plan. Someone who got in that SUV, pointed it north, and drove. Exit after exit, mile after mile, knowing exactly what he'd left behind. Ocala police contacted Georgia authorities, told them Ralph Bacon was heading their way, that he'd just committed a double homicide, that he was armed. The license plate readers picked him up on Interstate 95, just past the Florida-Georgia border, 7 miles into Georgia. The Kingsland Police Department got the call. They had eyes on the vehicle. Kingsland police moved in. Lights on. Sirens on. Pull over. Stop the vehicle. You're done running. And Ralph Bacon did pull over. He slowed down, moved to the shoulder, stopped the SUV on the side of Interstate 95. Police were approaching, probably calling out commands, getting ready to take him into custody. But Ralph Bacon had other plans. He picked up the gun. The same gun he'd used to kill Nancy. The same gun he'd used to kill 4-year-old Eden. And he put it to his own head. One shot. Ralph Bacon killed himself inside that vehicle before police could reach him. Before he could be arrested, questioned, charged, tried, held accountable. He took the coward's way out, right there on I-95, less than 2 hours after murdering his ex-wife and her daughter. Moving on, Nancy and Ralph had no reported incidents of domestic violence. Not one call to police about fights or threats. On paper, their relationship looked complicated, but not violent, not dangerous, except it was. Police said they believed Ralph didn't go to that apartment with the goal of killing Nancy, but here's what doesn't add up. Ralph Bacon had a gun, and when whatever argument or fight happened, he used it. Not once, multiple times. On Nancy, on Eden. You don't shoot a 4-year-old child in the heat of the moment. That's not how that works. Eden wasn't his child. Eden was a reminder of everything Ralph couldn't control. And when he decided Nancy had to die, he made sure Eden died too.
The shooter, Ralph Bacon, had just gotten off probation in Georgia this past July. He'd threatened somebody with a gun. And when he moved back here, the victim's mother was worried he'd be dangerous and actually reported him to police in Georgia this past Monday, but nothing came of it. Friends and family members say Nancy Bacon was kind, generous, creative, artistic, a loving mother. But Tuesday night,
numerous gunshots.
911 callers reported Nancy and her 4-year-old daughter Eden had been killed.
And I saw the boyfriend speeding out of here.
Police tracked Ralph Bacon's car and tried to pull him over just after he'd crossed the border into Georgia. They say he shot and killed himself in the car before they could get to him.
She really was a light, like her and her daughter. She loved her daughter more than anything.
I talked on the phone with one of Nancy's best friends, Nicole Swope. Nicole and Nancy met in 9th grade, shortly before she and Ralph Bacon got together.
I wouldn't say he was like the most stable person, but never in a million years would I have expected him to do this to her and her baby.
Ralph and Nancy got married when she was just 16 years old and he was 21. Her mother, Ola, who asked to not be on camera, told me she was against it, but wound up signing off on it anyway. She wanted them married in case Nancy got pregnant. The couple wound up divorcing in 2016. Nancy had Eden with a different man who was never really in the picture much.
Yeah, he dipped out.
Police and Nancy's friends say Ralph came back into the picture sometime around the holidays. Ola says she was worried he'd be dangerous and claimed he hated that Eden had a different father.
We've heard through witnesses as well that was a key issue within the relationship.
Police say they're still trying to figure out what exactly led to the shooting. Police say they hadn't gotten any calls for domestic disturbances or violence from this apartment before this. In Ocala, Marie Edinger, Fox 35 News.
There was no arrest. There was no trial. There was no opportunity for Nancy's family to sit in a courtroom and watch Ralph Bacon answer for what he did. Ralph made sure of that when he pulled that trigger on I-95. He robbed Nancy's family of justice, robbed them of answers, robbed them of the chance to look him in the eye and ask why. Nancy's brother posted on Facebook in the days after, "During this difficult time of loss, we ask that you pray for our family. Nancy and Eden will be missed beyond measure." Missed beyond measure. Nancy's mother, Ola, had to live with the knowledge that she'd tried to stop this. She'd called the police that very day. Monday morning, she picked up the phone and reported Ralph Bacon to authorities in Georgia. Told them he was dangerous. Told them she was worried, and nothing came of it. By Monday night, her daughter and granddaughter were dead. You want to talk about guilt? Imagine being Ola. Imagine knowing you saw it. Coming. You said something. You tried to protect your family, and it still wasn't enough. The system didn't move fast enough, didn't take the threat seriously enough. And now Nancy and Eden are gone. Here's what this case comes down to. A woman named Nancy Bacon made the mistake of loving the wrong man when she was too young to know better. She married him at 16, divorced him years later, tried to move on, had a daughter with someone else, and when she was alone and struggling, she let Ralph back in. What we know is that Ralph Bacon hated that little girl, and when he decided he was done with Nancy, he made sure Eden went with her. There are no lessons here that make this easier to swallow, no silver lining, because nothing good came from this. 2 people are dead. A 4-year-old child is dead. A family is destroyed. And the man responsible took the coward's way out. But if there's anything to take away from Nancy and Eden's story, it's this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone has a history of violence, a criminal record involving weapons, don't assume they've changed just because time has passed. Ola did everything a mother could do. She made that call, and it wasn't enough. That's the tragedy within the tragedy. Nancy Bacon was 34 years old. She had friends who loved her, a family that adored her, a daughter who needed her. She was described as a light. Eden Eva Barker-Wickramarachchi was 4 years old. 4. She never got to start kindergarten, never got to lose her first tooth, never got to learn to ride a bike or make a best friend. She died because a grown man couldn't handle the fact that she existed. Make it make sense. You can't, because it doesn't. Ralph Bacon is gone. Nancy and Eden are gone. And all that's left is grief, questions, and the knowledge that this didn't have to happen. But they're not. And that's the story. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe to 12 AM Crime for more cases like this, and drop a comment below. Let me know what case you want covered next. Stay safe out there, and remember, when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Until next time.